Coming to you today from Brisbane, Australia, the Pullman Hotel. Not as nice as the W I stayed last year here, but this has been a great tour as usual. For the first time in 30 years, I went to Auckland, New Zealand. We started our tour there and then went to Perth on the west side of Australia, the big mining area and the closest to the, India, Southeast Asia, booming sectors I tout in the world. And then to Adelaide, which is like their Midwest. And you got to remember in Australia, everything's upside down. The South is like the North. And vice versa. People move more north towards Brisbane, where I am now, on the Gold Coast, for warmer weather, and they move west for more opportunity towards Perth because they're in the southern hemisphere. Not only did I have to come halfway around the world, it took me 40 hours from takeoff in San Juan, Puerto Rico, to land not only just in Sydney at first, but then I had to go to Auckland. The first city we spoke in was in Auckland. 40 hours to land in Auckland from takeoff in San Juan. So quite a trip, and I just thank technology for some super good headphones and my iPhone with 300 albums on it to get me through that. But again, I always love coming here. I always say Australia's like Canada with better weather. The cities are all modern. People here speak English. They have very strong Asian immigration. The best demographics in the world for developed countries is Australia and New Zealand. So again, I'm here obviously with a very positive message, except that real estate prices here outside of China are the most overvalued in the world. Sydney, after Hong Kong, is the most overvalued developed city in the world. And Australia is the most overvalued country outside of China. And New Zealand is a close second. So they have a real estate bubble problem here. And, I've been coming here since 1990. And I actually sell more books per capita here than I do in the U.S. because people are hungry here and they like new information. Another reason I like coming here. But they do have two problems. They're on the cusp of China, which is the biggest bubble, of course, that I say is going to burst. And they have very strong real estate bubble because they have such strong immigration against very limited land for development. Australia and California real estate markets are the most similar I've seen in the world. California is more like Australia than it is Florida or New York or, of course, Ohio or things like that. So again, we've been through all these cities, Auckland, Perth, then Adelaide in the middle, kind of like their Midwest, and then Melbourne, the really kind of up-and-coming, sophisticated city, Sydney, which everybody knows with the harbor and the bridge and all this stuff. I mean, it's just one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I've always wanted to live here if I could. And Brisbane and the Gold Coast, which is really the biggest growth area in Australia. So I've seen the whole thing, and it's so funny, for real estate, it can be really simple. I have the demographics here, and I have the overvaluation statistics to show these people. And, they've always said, Harry, I love your demographics. I love your predictions, but we don't agree with your real estate. We don't think it'll go down here. Well, it's going down here, especially Sydney and Melbourne, the most overvalued cities. It's already down 10 to 20% in the higher end areas. And you might even hear a little noise in the background. There's always building stuff. Thing I notice most, and again, very simple. When I travel the world, I always look for cranes. And when I go to all these cities, Auckland had a lot of cranes, more than I expected. And Auckland is very overvalued, but not as overvalued as Sydney and Melbourne. But the city with the most cranes was Melbourne. Melbourne has bubbled the most in the last decade. Sydney is still the most overvalued, but all the cities in Australia are highly valued, and Adelaide is the least because it's more everyday people. It's more like the Midwest in the States. So again, I love coming here. And for the first time, I get to come here and people finally say, oh, we're starting to get what you're saying about real estate. and real estate is bursting here. And I keep warning people, a bubble doesn't go down 10 or 20%. All the Australian economists are finally admitting that real estate's going down, it's overvalued, but they're saying, oh, it'll just go down another 5% and do, everything will be okay. No, it's not going to be okay. So the difference here, and that I'm telling people, is they are not only have a much stronger millennial generation than the US or Europe, and of course Japan has none, and China. They're also on the edge of Southeast Asia and India, where I am the most bullish for the next global boom. So Australia and New Zealand will be among the best developed countries to boom next time around from 2023 to 36, and Southeast Asia and India are my favorite spots. And eventually China again, once they get over their overbuilding binge and their hangover, which could take 5 or 10 years. So again, I'm extremely bullish here. I love the people here, but I have to also warn them, despite their great demographics, that they have a real estate bubble that is bursting and will burst much more, and they're going to feel the China bubble burst, which is the epicenter of this bubble. You have to remember, back in the last bubble era, on our 90-year great bubble and bubble buster and great reset cycle, the U.S. was the epicenter of the bubble in the roaring 20s. It was the emerging country that was becoming the new leader. Well, China is the epicenter of this one. And so, of course, Australia and New Zealand and this whole Asian area is going to feel that bubble burst, and it is going to be the worst when it happens. So again, I'm probably going to come out here again in November. Greg Owen here at GoCo has been promoting me here for almost a decade now, and we have very good audience here, and I'm probably going to be coming out here twice a year with all the jet lag both ways. And you know what the problem is? I got jet lag coming out here for 5 or 6 days, just getting over it now. When I come back, it's going to be twice as bad going east. So anybody who flies around the world knows jet lag is worse going back east. And again, just to summarize, you hear the noise in the background probably. They're always building stuff here. Incredible real estate boom and bubble. But all bubbles burst, and the bigger the bubble, the bigger the burst.